I thought what we've been making these comparisons between the Panthers and the Canes quite a bit, meaning the Carolina Panthers and the Carolina Hurricanes. And usually we emphasize the differences. Today I'm going to emphasize a similarity. Despite the fact that the Carolina Panthers have been a laughingstock for a handful of years, and the Canes have become a model of consistency and winning a playoff series every year, and the Panthers are always at the bottom of the power rankings, and the Canes, the analytics always love, and all of these things. The thing that they have shared is fans going, do we have that dude? Because as consistent as the Canes have been, and the system is good top to bottom, and everybody hustles, and you have to play a certain way, and Rod demands this, there has been the question of, do you have that superstar? Do you have that guy that's going to score that goal? And you know what goal I'm talking about, right? The backbreaker. When you're up 2-0 against Florida, and you get a power play, and 3-0 feels like a nail in the coffin to send the thing back to Florida for Game 6. Do they have the guy to score that goal? And with the Panthers, it's pretty much got to be a quarterback if you're talking Carolina Panthers, right? You hope it's Bryce. And he showed some signs of it this past year, right? Some of those late drives. For the Canes, it's always been, well, it better be Aho. Well, it better be Sebastian Aho. And I'll tell you this right now. Watching last night, the first period of Game 5 was my favorite Sebastian Aho period that I have seen. And that's not to say it was his best top to bottom. There were, I've seen periods where he goes undefeated in the face-off circle and has 4 hits and he scores a goal, right? And I've seen him play better top to bottom. But the thing that he was in the first period of last night was a killer. He was a killer. And I say that in the best way possible, in the most complimentary way possible. I am greedy when it comes to Sebastian Aho. I understand that he can play well without scoring. Right? That's been one of the themes throughout this postseason run is I've been calling Aho a conundrum, right? A mystery, a riddle. He's really hard to understand from where I sit. Because the people I trust for in-depth hockey knowledge tell me that all of the things that he does so well, right? There's games where I come out of it just so unsatisfied with the way he played, and they're just hitting me with, but did you see his defensive fundamentals? Did you see how much he helped on the penalty kill? And I'm going like, yeah, generally I saw it, but I also didn't see the thing that I need to see from a dude. That killer instinct. He had it. And maybe the key, I joked about this yesterday, maybe the key for Aho was he had to get the first one on a solo breakaway where there was nobody for him to pass it to. So he didn't have the option to be unselfish, right? He pick-sixed it, right? He got the interception and he was off to the races. And I'm going to do my impression of everybody else that was on the ice for the Canes. Go Fishy! That was it, right? They're not even trying to get up there with him because he's either going to score or he's not, and we're going to be back coming this direction, right? And he put it in the back of the net, and that unlocked something because the second goal is the one I love even more. The second goal in the first period wasn't an obvious, like the first one, he had no choice. It was a shot, right? He was going to shoot it. If he didn't, it would have been the most ridiculous thing ever. There was nobody to pass it to, and he had the fast break. So boom, shoots it, goal, great. The second one wasn't a guaranteed shot. Right? He could have cycled it around. He could have tried stick handling. He could have tried to set someone up, but he didn't. And he scored the goal, and he skated around the back of the net, and an arm in the air, stone cold expression, little bit of a head nod, and I went, ooh, I like that look in his eye. I like that look in his eye. It was the most he has looked like what I believe is the archetype, the prototype, the best version of a superstar. That period right there. That whole, we need a hot start, cool. I'll be that. Now the question is, can you do that consistently? The question is, can you do that every time it's needed? Because the great ones find a way. It's funny because they struggled on the power play. We'll get into it more in depth later. But I think a power play is an opportunity or maybe even a necessity where you have the guy, right? There's one less defender. Give me the puck. Watch what I do with it, right? You need like an ISO scorer in the NBA. You need Ovechkin, right, as the all-time leader in power play goals, where it feels inevitable. You need that guy. I'm not sure that's ever going to be Aho. I think that's something they need to go get in the offseason. But Aho does have he has the clutch thing, right? Which is why it's so frustrating. In overtimes, he's really, really good. You see him put the team on his back, like in the double overtime game, the series clincher in way back against the Devils. Like the first period last night. It's in there. That's why I'm greedy with Aho. I want everything that everybody else loves and what I consider the killer instinct. I want the great forechecking, back-checking. I want the mark on defense not getting out of your sight. I want the leadership. I want the assist. But I also want that. I love the Bad Boys movies. And there's a running thing, right, where Marcus, played by Martin Lawrence, is timid, he's goofy, right? He's a lot of the comic relief, while Will Smith is the cool and the suave and the Mike Lowry. And Martin Lawrence does something awesome in a fight or in a scene, and then you have Will Smith sitting there going, "Now that's how you shoot. From now on, that's how you shoot." It's like I knew you had it in you. That's what I felt like in the first period. So if you tell me you're going to get that Aho for a season or for the majority of a regular season, I know everybody's going to have their off games, and then you're going to have that in elimination games and potential closeout games in the postseason, that solves some things. But you need that version of Aho. I've been screaming for it, and we saw it. It was there. He morphed in. He went into the telephone booth for a second, came out with a cape, and he showed it to us for 20 minutes. Was Svetch supposed to be the inevitable scorer? Maybe. He was a second overall pick. Like, he brought certain skills and everything. Yeah, maybe he was supposed to. I just don't get I don't get the same panache feeling, that same je ne sais quoi, that same thing. I think Aho has it, but he just has to do it. That you need Dennis, you'll love this moment, right? Spoiler alerts if you haven't watched like the 900 movies you need in the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Okay, I can catch everyone up. Go on.
Aho needs the moment where the hammer comes to him.
Yeah.
Like Captain America.
Yeah.
Where everybody looks around and goes like, we all had a pretty good feeling you were worthy, but it's really good to see it be known. Right now it's there. Last night, first period, I was like, there it is. Like the hammer came to him, and then it didn't end up finishing out that way. But we need you to stay there. Right? I've had a good feeling. The Panthers were not messing around last night. Okay, I want that to be clear. You could argue Game 4, there was a little bit of them saying, if anybody that's a little banged up, we're going to sit. They sat out Greer. They sat out Reinhart. They sat out Mikula, who all were back for Game 5. You could argue, if you really wanted to, that Florida, I don't want to say took their foot off the gas, but they weren't full throttle. You couldn't say that last night. Right, they were up to all their tricks. Every whistle, they're pushing and shoving, and they were up to all their tricks. And Sebastian Aho made it happen in the first period. He might be that dude. Gosh, it would make everything easier if he is. If he's not, you got to go find one. And do you know what's actually the best option here? Go get another. Right, because that's the part where it's a little different between we're comparing Carolina Panthers and the Canes. Hockey, you can have as many as you want. Football, it's like, well, you know, especially if it's the quarterback, like you need one and everybody rallies around. The best hockey teams, they've got 5 dudes, right? And they all want the puck in the big moments. Not saying they're greedy, not saying they're selfish, not saying they don't pass it when they should, but they all want the puck in the big moments. And when one scores 2 in the first period, the other 4 are going, the second period is mine. Go get another one, but goodness gracious, I know it's in there for Aho. You know I like to name my theories, Dennis.
Mm-hmm.
I have maybe I'll call this like the Beatles theory, okay? I have a theory about bands where if you have one genius in a band, you can be a really, really good band, okay? You can put out albums, you can tour for the rest of your life, you're good. But you become like a legendary band when you have more than one, okay? When you have not only McCartney, but Lennon. When Nirvana has not only Kurt Cobain, but look, Dave Grohl goes on and starts his own band and is really gosh darn good with the Foo Fighters, right? Queen, it's like, well, look at this. Brian May on the guitar is a genius, and Freddie Mercury was his lead singer, right? When you put 2 geniuses in the same band, that's where you level up.
I get Jimmy Page and John Bonham and Led Zeppelin.
Yes, exactly. You can tour and you can be really good and you can have a fan base with one genius. But when you get 2, you start to go into rare air. I look at team sports a lot of the same ways, right? If you have, I always relate back to football because it's what I played. If you have a genius quarterback, you can win a Super Bowl or 2, right? But if you have somebody on the defensive side that's also a genius and you have the quarterback that's a genius, you can be a dynasty. Right? What's the difference between Peyton Manning with the Colts and Brady with the Patriots? Brady had Belichick on the other side. Shout out to UNC. Right? So they had 2 geniuses. You get that extra genius, it works. Same is true for it factors. Go get and whoever it is, we'll break down the free agency class and who might be available by trade in the offer sheet class. We're not doing that today yet, but go get another genius and then hope Aho emerges as what we saw in the first period yesterday. Now you got 2. Right? Now you got 2. Now you got Lennon and McCartney. And by the way, you could argue all 4 in the Beatles were, which is why I call it the Beatles theory. You look at the songs that like George Harrison wrote and Ringo wrote, and you're like, wow, they all can write hits, can't they? Yeah. Don't disrespect Ringo back there. Percussion. That would be Slavin, I guess. Slavin is the drummer of the band. He's a genius in his own right, but he's just keeping tempo and making sure everybody else is on the right page. The Drive with Tim Donnelly, 99.9 The Fan. Gosh, that first period, chef's kiss for Sebastian Aho.